Test, test. Testing.
with HFM. Now she's an independent up in Green Bay. That's what brought her here.
All right, we're going to call to order the City Council work session for Monday, June 27th, 2022. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And roll call, Jamie.
Jeff Dahlke.
Here.
Tracy Coach. Here. Bill LeClaire.
Here.
Darla LeClaire.
Here.
Tim Petrie.
Here.
Jason Ring.
Here.
Bonnie Shimulunis.
Here.
Scott Steckmesser.
Here.
Adam Husky.
Here. All right, we're going to skip over 4. We will revisit it later on in the meeting. We want to jump right to E, seeing we have a guest that is wants to probably talk about E and at least hear what we have to say about that. So we're going to jump right into that. So if you want to flip to E in your packet, which is discuss liability insurance requirements contained in city ordinance regulating commercial uses of golf carts, including rentals. The recommended action is up to council discretion. And I don't know if Chief or Greg's going to lead us into that.
I'll cue it up, then I'll turn it over to the chief. You know, we've allowed the licensing of golf carts to operate on city streets for, I don't know, 4 years or so now, and have close to 50 licensed. The council more recently, the initial ordinance prohibited commercial uses like carrying cargo or passengers for hire. The ordinance has since been amended to include those possible uses as well as possible rental of golf carts. And for any of those so-called commercial uses, there is a requirement in the ordinance, as you likely know, for providing proof of liability insurance coverage in the amount of up to $1 million per individual, or $3 million, I'll say, per event, or if there's more than one individual that incurs injuries or has a liability claim. You'd heard at the last meeting from Joe Baton, who's here tonight and actually is the owner of several vacation rentals in the community and interested in pursuing possible golf cart rental, among other things, as a business activity, that based on discussions with, I'll say, his insurance agency, maybe multiple possible insurers, that the availability and cost of that level of coverage are problematic. I know Brian Kohlmeyer, our chief, has spent some time looking into this after we've heard some feedback, and Brian can give you an update at least on what we've heard so far.
Thanks. So when Mr. Beaton contacted me, you know, in the insurance world isn't really my strong suit. So I did some digging as well, just to find out whether or not a requirement that we have in our ordinance is, you know, puts somebody in a catch-22 perhaps, or creates a situation, you know, where they have difficulty in obtaining and or complying with our ordinance. So I did speak with 2 local insurance agents, and Mr. Beaton mentioned this during the public input at our last regular meeting, that the 1 million, 3 million, 1 million, as stated in the ordinance, and it isn't just in the golf cart ordinance, it is also in at least 1 or possibly 2 others that we have updated over the last year or so. In particular, it's in the new bicycle or e-bike for rentals of e-bikes and so forth. I know it was also discussed at one point in time when a local business owner wanted to rent kayaks at the beach as well. I think that's when it first kind of came on the radar. So in my contacts with the 2 local insurance agents, they said that this 1 million, 3 million policy is an oddity. It's not typical as far as offerings from the insurance company. What is typical for commercial policies, commercial coverage, is 1 million, 2 million, or 2 million, 4 million. If you're following the how that flows there, it's usually a doubling. So whatever that first number is, whether it's 1 million, it usually goes to 2 million, and back to 1 million. If it's 2 million, it goes to 4 million, and so forth. So that 1 and 3 is a little odd. It's not normally available across the board. It is possible to get it, so it isn't like it is impossible to do. But what some insurance companies might have to do is actually add I'm not sure if a rider is the correct term, but they may have to add something onto it. So the person would actually get a policy of 1 million, 2 million, but then they would have to add something. Might be an umbrella policy, it might be something else, but they would have to add to it. One of the numbers that I got from insurance agent was on the order of about $10,000 is what that policy would cost. Now, to put that into context, we have a fairly large business next door to us that has a number of employees, a lot of merchandise and so forth. And for their year, you're talking just over $5 or well under $10,000 for their overall commercial policy. This would be 10 to add this golf cart component to it. So it can be cost prohibitive, I would imagine, for a business owner unless you're doing a lot of volume. Now I know, and I'm not going to throw out any confidential information or anything like that. Joe did get in touch with me and he did find something that might work for him from an agency out of this area. But that 10 million is, or excuse me, 10,000 seems to be fairly consistent. And unless you kind of arrange something where maybe you're doing it by volume and over time with the insurance company, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of options. With one of the insurance companies I talked to, they don't even carry such a policy. They kind of steer people to some other agencies that deal with, I guess, these type of policies. They're, I don't want to say higher risk, but they just simply don't carry it. And it's a very, very large company, and they have the majority of policies, believe it or not, from Two Rivers, Wisconsin, of auto policies throughout the state of Wisconsin. So they just don't offer it at all. I know Elizabeth, and she can help out here, had looked at a number of different municipalities before it was just put into place. So it's not like what we have isn't something that others don't. But having said that, it's just a wall that at least one of our local business owners is bumping up against. So I guess my point here, and the reason why I'm speaking, is just more or less to kind of confirm what Mr. Beaton was saying. As far as a suggestion, I don't know if you would accept a suggestion or if it's appropriate for me to make a suggestion. Again, I'm not an insurance person, but given the fact that it's a little, I'd say unorthodox, maybe that 1 million, 2 million, that seems to be more in line with the norm might suffice. Now, I also asked those insurance agents, is what the city of Two Rivers has in our ordinance, is that like unreasonable? And the answer I got, a little different between the two, but fairly similar. One was, no, it's not unreasonable. So the 1 million, 3 million isn't unreasonable, given the fact that, if you have an accident, and particularly a death in one of these situations, there's going to be a pretty hefty payout. And so the city wanting some protection there, or making sure that these people have some protection there, is not necessarily an unreasonable thing. When I asked the other agent, they said, again, no, it's good to have this in ordinance, but maybe it should again be more like that 1 million, 2 million thing instead of 1 and 3. So having it in our ordinance, I think, is important. I know that there's other businesses around in the general area, and there's some suggestions about just putting the onus back on the renter. That is problematic to the renter for a couple of reasons. Number one, that would mean that the business itself doesn't have a policy to cover it. So that would be a little problematic, I think. The second part of it is that most homeowners or people that come and rent a golf cart may not necessarily have the coverage, even though they might show an insurance card or something like that to the person you're renting the golf cart from. So it's not necessarily like going to a rental company when you fly in somewhere and you're going to rent a car and you've kind of already got coverage for that rental. It's not necessarily like that. So a person could think that they're covered, and then a catastrophic accident happens, and then they find out that their insurance company is not going to cover it. So putting the onus back on the on the renter, may work to some extent, but as far as, liability from the city and making sure that something like that doesn't happen, again, the requirement by ordinance doesn't seem to be unreasonable.
Why do we require that from the city standpoint for a private business to have insurance?
I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask that question. Jack might be a little bit better to ask that question too, but I'll just defer to Jack on that.
It's not unusual because governing bodies of communities may believe that it's part of their obligation to protect their citizens in the event of accidents resulting from negligence or wrongful conduct by those the community provides permits or licenses to. I know of nothing in the statutes particularly applicable to golf carts that requires it in terms of their rental, but that would be my inference regarding why you see these requirements fairly commonly in ordinances of this kind.
Just seems odd because of the fact that it falls under DOT and the DOT requires anyone in the state of Wisconsin to have insurance to operate, that it should just automatically fall in line, not?
Yeah, I don't know this for 100% without looking at it, but my initial thought and answer to that is that this isn't a motor vehicle. So I don't know that there would be necessarily a requirement to have insurance.
Yeah.
So.
I guess I just assumed it did because when we talk about UTV, ATV versus a golf cart, we always put it under DOT. And that's the reason they're allowed on our roadways. So I just figured that you would have to have insurance just like you do to operate a motor vehicle on the roadway.
Yeah, there's a lot of, no, and that actually isn't really the case.
Okay.
So yeah, there's DOT rules and regulations and DNR rules and regulations when you start crossing over into those things. And I've found out a little bit more about that. We can talk about that another day as far as, recreational insurance and automobile insurance, operating the things on the roadways versus off roadways. The same thing with golf carts. So, a lot of people think they can just get recreational insurance for these golf carts, but if you're going to primarily ride them on the road, you probably need an auto policy. And I can tell you that one of the very large insurers in this area, that's their stance. That's not the local agent stance. That is the company's stance, that if you're operating a golf cart and you have recreational insurance and you get in an accident on the roadway, you're probably not going to be covered. They will provide an auto policy.
Looking at this DOT website, it does say, just like automobiles, low.
I'll call on you. Just make
I'm
sure we
sorry.
direct just the chief.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Just
You're
meant
good.
that as a staff factual thing. LSV or low-speed vehicle operators must have a motor vehicle liability policy in effect that covers the low-speed vehicle and meets minimum required coverage. But again, the minimum required coverage, as I understand it, for a motor vehicle is laughably low.
I think it's 500,000 maybe.
25 and 50, something like that.
It's at least 125,000 now.
Go ahead, Tim.
And besides the accidental death being that high, yeah, state minimums don't cover what you're gonna get sued for if there's an accident. Most construction equipment.
Jeff, you had a question?
And do we currently have insurance policies mandatory on the individuals?
You talking about the individual golf carts that are driving around town? Yes.
Okay.
That was a requirement, that even prior to any of the recent changes with commercial, that was a requirement that they had an insurance policy.
What are their policies?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I don't, I could maybe look at the ordinance here and I don't know off the top of my head, but we do ask for that as proof before we give a license, so.
I think you can.
Would it help much if we changed the 3 million?
I think it would. That's my personal opinion, based on what I've been hearing from the agents. Like 6 pages long, so bear with me here.
I think Mr. Bateman wants to speak, and we will allow him to do that if he so wishes. Just come up to the microphone so anyone on Facebook or anything else can take a look while Chief looks that up. We can listen to what you, unless there's a big objection, I guess, from anyone here on council. Otherwise, we'll let him speak to it a little bit. Go ahead.
Okay, no, just clear with what Greg pointed out with the LSV, the low-speed vehicles, and that's actually one of the hiccups we ran into. The state exempts golf carts from that, and as a result, there's a number of insurance agencies that will not insure them because they're not LSVs. So especially those in the southern states where that's what they do, they specialize in that because, there's tons of them in Florida and stuff. So the second you tell them we can't permit them as LSVs, they won't even touch it. So that's another big hiccup run into. But I'll share, we spent about 3 months talking to insurance agencies. I probably talked to more than 50 of them. I got one quote locally as the chief pointed out, is 10,000. 10,000 is the minimum. It only goes up from there. So the way they do it, it's a commercial business. It's based on your percentage sales. They audit you every quarter, and then you got to do a percentage there. So that's a base minimum. So if you got one golf cart, it has to be 10,000. If you had a huge inventory, it certainly could be, less over time. So we did get finally, either Friday or Monday, actually last Friday, we finally got a quote to meet the city's ordinance. So it took 3 months for us to get that. Basically, where that landed out, they would take 30% of our earnings with a minimum of 10,000, actually a minimum of 15,000 for that one. If we go to the 1 to 2, it's 20% of the earnings. And then if we just have a flat rate insurance policies, there are companies we can work with, or just, if there's just a standard, you must have insurance. I mean, we do not disagree with insurance. I don't know why someone would run such a business without insurance, to be honest with you. So we do not disagree with that. We can get down to about 6% of our sales. So it's all based on sales. There are other criteria that the insurance agencies make us do, such as certain written agreements and other filings we have to do with them. So there are other things above and beyond just the ordinance itself. So I figured I'd share some of those percentages to give you kind of some perspective. So
I don't disagree with you needing insurance. I just don't like the city to be in the way of it. If we don't have to be. In this case, it sounds like we may have to be, but I hope you would have insurance, right? But when I was speaking, I don't like to be the one that's in the middle of it if we don't have to be.
Yeah.
Pounding rules down on people.
Yeah, I mean, us personally, we got many different levels of insurance that cover different aspects of our business that could apply if there was some sort of accident. Obviously, that's not what we want. There's certain things we have to implement. I think the city's ordinance is minimum age of 16. Ours would have to be 25, just like renting out a car, right? So, I mean, that's what the agencies are just going to require us to do. So there's certain parts where we go beyond the ordinance itself, so. And those are just a few things.
Would it help the rates you're getting if the city's ordinance was 1 million, 2 million, rather than the way it's currently written?
That, right now, we could get to 20% of our sales would go towards just insurance. That's better than 30. But we would have to, make sure we have a bigger inventory. And that wasn't our goal off the bat, was to have that big of an inventory, just because, we think we can handle so much. Maybe we broaden be outside the city, but much of our business activity is here within the city, so, yeah. Yep.
What would you feel, in your opinion, would be fair and equitable?
I looked at other ordinances too. It was, split 50-50. Some talked about insurance, some didn't. Those that did, most of them were just must have an insurance policy. I think that's adequate, and that's where I think every business will be a little bit different, because we have different facets here within the city. We already have a bunch of coverage policies. We primarily are going to rent to our guests coming to town. So we already covered the activities on those properties. So it would kind of fall, we got all these umbrella policies, so we probably don't need as high of an insurance. So we may have that benefit, but if it's just, say, a standalone business, it may be different. Again, it depends on, when you go through your risk management assessment and things like that, how comfortable you feel. So I mean, if it's just standalone, you must have insurance. I mean, I think that's pretty in line from what we've seen on other ordinances we've looked at. I looked at maybe a dozen, just a random Google search, right? So, all Wisconsin ones.
What would you think would be fair? Just so we have an idea of what, what we could use for numbers.
The million, just general total is what we would get for sure. So, yeah. And that's pretty.
And not to interrupt Joe, but I did reach out today to a golf cart sales and leasing company that's in the area. I happened to be behind their truck this morning. I think he was delivering a couple somewhere locally. So I called over to Reedsville, if that helps, and said, hey, what's the deal? If you're floor planning, whether it's sales or leasing to a golf course or somebody who's putting them on the roads, the public roads, what do you require? Or do you pass through some program that your manufacturer, say if it's Club Car, which is one of the majors, what do they have a program that facilitates rentals? And his answer on that part was no. And his requirement is, and again, I don't know all the details, but $1 million in liability coverage with their company, which is, they're not the licensing entity. This is when they lease golf carts as the leasing entity, $1 million in liability coverage with the company as a certificate holder. Now that's different than an additional insured. As I understand it, a certificate holder just means you're to be notified if coverage is terminated, whether it's for non-payment or cancellation. But just that one example out there, somebody in private industry that's concerned about having some measure of liability as the supplier of golf carts on a lease basis to somebody else who's renting them to the public, it was $1 million. And I'm not saying that's right, wrong, but as a measure. And that kind of jibes at least with what Joe offered. There.
Thank you.
And one of the agents in town did mention $1 million across the board. So $1 million for, the liability, $1 million for death and so forth. So million. He said that most likely if they came and asked for that, again, there'd probably be $1 million, $2 million policy, but as a bare minimums, that's one of the suggestions that they made. As far as a requirement here, it does not state it in ordinance, but I know that on our application process, which is part of the ordinance, it does require insurance, but it doesn't have amounts on there. I'm almost certain of that.
But I saw something.
In the copy that I got off of E-Code, I didn't see it.
I was only able to find it for
Hang on just a second.
commercial uses.
I just saw it under commercial use. That was it. And there were some modifications made to this ordinance about a year ago, maybe a little less than a year ago.
And again, an indemnification and hold harmless is only as good as the wallet and assets of the person giving it. We do say in our ordinance generally that any person who owns, operates, or rides a golf cart on a public street, road, or highway in the city does so at his or her own risk and peril and assumes all liability resulting from operation. Do we have that, Brian, as something they sign off on when they apply for a license?
Yeah, I don't have the application here, but I know on the application, there's actually a number of other things as far as I think it's the square inches of the reflectors that need to be on there. Insurance is one. There's talks about rear view mirrors because there was some question that came up about whether you could have just an inside rear view mirror or exterior mirrors. So there was a number of things that are on the application that aren't specifically noted in the ordinance.
Looking at section 896, subsection 4.
Yeah, but that's under the commercial purposes because it's G4. If you look at G, it's commercial purposes.
Okay. That's the only place I've found.
And
That's the only thing I found too.
Those are the limits that are in question. Correct.
Yeah, I think when this ordinance was originally crafted is that, and it may state, I'm almost certain it states it somewhere in here about they have to fill out the application and the requirements of the application. And in there were a number of other requirements in there. And again, it got to that, the reflector size and things like that. Cause I know we went over that pretty thoroughly and trying to clear it up because it was pretty messy when this ordinance was originally created. And it was hard for some people to actually comply because of especially that reflector requirement. It was just weirdly stated, and so we cleaned all that stuff up.
895C mentions proof of insurance as being part of the application requirements, but it doesn't mention policy limits.
Right, right.
Okay, we are free to discuss, as this is a discussion item, and we can come out of here with an action. So if we want to discuss and bring something to the table as a motion, I think that would be great. So if anyone wants to kick that off. Personally, I like the $1 million policy that Mr. Bateman was up here discussing as well. It's something that I actually wrote down, $1 million umbrella, as we were discussing before he gave his number. So I was very comfortable with that when he said it. But I don't know how everyone else feels on that.
I don't know if I'd specify that as umbrella
No,
policy.
that's just what I wrote.
Okay.
The one thing I'm wondering about is that if we change it for golf carts, are we also going to change the requirements for like e-bikes and wherever else it's mentioned?
That would be my suggestion. Because when I've talked to the insurance agents, I brought in all those things. I didn't talk about golf carts exclusively. I talked about e-bikes, talked about kayaks, talked about all those things. And there's also a business in town, it sounded like, that was running up against us with renting bicycles, renting e-bikes. And they were looking at getting out of the business just because of the cost of it. Now, I don't know that changing this to $1 million across the board makes it any more palatable for that particular business, but it is, I guess, better in a sense. So
I think what we should do is when we get this vote down, have Chief just go through some of those that he thinks would fit in there and bring that back to us at next council meeting and kind of bring those all in one instead of us trying to guess, I guess, because we may miss one or two. And if Chief can kind of assemble that list, we can get it all at once and not have to really revisit it again. Just a suggestion. Anybody else? Anyone want to offer a motion? We don't really have one.
You don't offer a motion, but
Direction for staff to prepare an ordinance amendment for the next meeting for you folks to consider.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, so that's from Bill and Jeff. And that is to direct staff to come back to us for the next meeting, which is next week, Tuesday. Right? And that will be to direct them to create a $1 million policy for rentals to include golf carts and anything else that Chief feels can be assembled into that same range of items that can be rented out. Is that correct? Yes.
So, you know, I won't be able to be here at the next meeting. My assistant chief will be here and we'll make sure it's well laid out.
And just, because I was quickly researching earlier, I wasn't looking at Facebook, I swear, maybe I should be. But our taxi cab ordinance, for example, you've got a fair amount of potential liability. You're rolling down the road with 5 or 6 people in, in a minivan or whatever as a taxi. And this is an old ordinance. Have to have coverage issued by a company authorized to do business in Wisconsin, indemnifying the applicant in the amount of $50,000 for damage to property and $100,000 for injury to one person caused by operation in the city. So I would say that from my
Revisited
standpoint, that's one, by way of example, it certainly needs to be addressed in tandem with this.
Vendors from special vehicles, which was something that was also recently changed. That one I think also applies under this, but we'll get them all.
Okay. Any other discussion before we take a vote? This should be pretty easy. So all in favor?
I,
Anyone opposed? All right. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Bateman, for being here. Okay.
Also to be here on the 5th as well, Joe. Thank you.
All right. We'll bring it back to discussion items. That is under 4 on our agenda. Under A, proposed Sister City inspired public art project. Greg.
I apologize. I've got something ready to go up. Dave, I need to share this or can you do that? This is purely an informational item. Oh, no. Totally unscripted, guys. Oh, sorry about that. Thank you, Dave. Okay. Just for information, not looking for any action tonight. How do I set up on your screens as well? This actually was from the website, indianheadroster.com, which relates to historic research on Patton's 2nd Infantry and their role in World War II. That included the group that liberated our sister city in Domažlice. And I think Patrick Duane is involved in, at least it sure sounds like his voiceover on the narrative for this page. But June of 2021, the folks in our sister city unveiled a new memorial in Domažlice. And the intent is to, again, honor the U.S. soldiers of the 2nd Infantry who liberated the town near the close of World War II, May 5th of 1945. 4 soldiers from the 2nd Infantry were named as honorary citizens of Domažlice, including Lieutenant Colonel Matt Connett from Two Rivers. The other gentleman named there, Herman Geist, is still alive. He makes the trip each year to Domažlice from New York City. Robert Gilbert just passed. I beg your pardon. Robert Gilbert is gone, and Jim Duncan just passed away earlier this year. Their families initiated an effort to put a commemorative friendship table in Domažlice. They raised about 1/3 of the money. The city or town of Domažlice raised the other 2/3. And they did, let's see if I can, do I have orders? There we go. This was the ceremony. On the front is an American flag depicted on one side of the marker with the date of liberation in May of 1945. Just a picture of the town square in Domažlice, the dedication in June of 2021. Some of you may remember Mayor Novak with that same sporty bow tie from our Memorial Day festivities. Again, the unveiling of the front of the monument, the rear of the monument, the Czech flag, and the message, "Thank you." Then on the table, the so-called friendship table, are a traditional Czech peasant's hat and a U.S. Army infantry helmet, both done in stone as well. That inspired the idea for the artist Václav Fiala, who's pretty well known in the Czech Republic. I've got a whole book of his works that Patrick Duane provided on their last visit, to propose a friendship table for here in Two Rivers with some of the same elements as the piece in the Czech Republic. Right now, we just got preliminary estimates. I wonder about the shipping costs, but Patrick says Fiala is also presently getting ready to ship a sculpture to Australia. So he's got some experience shipping heavy things. And there was some joke about a Hungarian tugboat, but I think that really was a joke in some correspondence I saw with Mayor Novak. But the thought is to identify a location where a semicircular table and bench could encircle a tree in a park space. And you see there the top-down view, similar elements to the sculpture or the memorial in Domažlice with the Chode peasant's hat and the American GI helmet, and then the American and Czech flags featured at each end of the arc of the table that would face the street or some public space. I'm not here recommending that the city spend taxpayer dollars on this piece of public art, but wanted to let you know that through private efforts within the, Connett family, Lieutenant Colonel Connett's family, and some interested individuals in the community that have supported the exchange, and a pledge of 100,000 crowns, Czech crowns, which is about $4,500 American, from the city government of Domažlice in token of our friendship and the sister cities relationship. The estimated budget of $28,000 is essentially covered at this point. They're very, very close, if not right there. So I would see if this continues moving forward, perhaps getting some input back to council through the Advisory Recreation Board about public space where this could go, and then some official action by the city council in coming months authorizing the placement and taking ownership of the piece of public art, not funding it, but clearly, you may have to get the leaf blowers out and do a few other basic things to maintain it. And frankly, my pitch has been probably, I would advocate for the East Central Park space because it's a very formal, traditional park. It's in proximity to City Hall where we have the historic marker commemorating the sister city relationship. But if you see this appearing on agendas for discussion at the advisory rec board or other places, I just wanted you to see it here first. And certainly if there are any concerns or objections, we'd like to address those, but it's seen as a zero city government investment, a community investment that is largely covered right now, but something that would further commemorate in a very visible public space this historic sister city relationship. So I just throw that out for introduction and discussion.
I think it's a great idea, and I think we should send it down to ARB and let's find a spot. Your suggestion in East Park is probably a pretty good suggestion.
Yeah, West Park's going to be pretty busy if all
right.
goes well. Yeah.
And East Park has a lot of historical markers related to war and the Czech and so on and so forth. I think that would fit it well, but we should send it down there for their blessing to send it back up here.
Any other thoughts?
Does this go around an existing tree? Or do we
The
plant a tree
thought
in-
was it
in
could do either, probably would be more effective with a mature existing tree. Otherwise it might be a fair wait.
Well, and
before
I was
it had
trying
the
to
desired
figure
effect.
out if again, I guess there's some logistics in how you put it together and.
That's the other thing. You have to find a healthy tree, frankly, with enough perimeter turf around it that you're not out to the curb line or creating other difficulties. It's like last week, Blake, the design landscape architect for Central Park West was here. We realized SMI had missed a major tree, one of the healthier trees left in the park, but it also is right in alignment with where the public sidewalk is proposed on the west side of the park. So he was tasked with how about you find out a way to curve that sidewalk and at least keep the tree for now, maybe extend its life. But yeah, the thought would be, in answer to your question, to find a mature, attractive tree, hopefully one that's not going to fall on the piece of artwork right away. Like we just lost a big limb onto the message board on the west side of Central Park last week. So pretty nice in a community where we're trying to see more efforts related to public art without city government getting into funding it in a big way, but being a promoter. And I know this kind of goes to some of the discussions Darla and the design committee at Main Street have had as far as making more interesting public art available in the downtown. So that's all I had on that. That will appear on probably the July advisory rec board agenda, at least for discussion, and a recommendation back to city council. If you're interested in having a print copy, I did run some off with that information. We'll post this on Facebook with a link as well. So that's all I had for that one, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay, without any other concerns, let's go on to B, which is the new city website going live on Wednesday, June 29th.
Over to Jamie on this one. I will say a lot of great work with our website consultants that Jamie and Lisa from City Manager's Office have headed up with considerable input from Elizabeth in Community Development, now more recently branching out into other departments. All yours.
So I have pulled up on the screen what the new city website looks like. It'll be going live at 9 o'clock or thereabout on Wednesday morning. Overall, it's pretty darn close to ready to go. It's got as much or more that out to you. Find any issues or links that don't work, but we hope that you'll find it much more user-friendly and a variety of ways, but questions?
Wanted to find, explore Two Rivers.
Right here.
Oh, okay. Now what about, if we really want to promote something that's like a one-off, type of thing, can you put it right on the homepage?
There
So it
is a
really,
box that we can turn on and off right here.
Okay.
That you can put multiple things in that people would have to like click through, but we don't have it on.
okay,
And I thought we would reserve that for important things or on out there all the time. And this bar along the top too is not always there. We just turned it on.
So it
We'll keep it on
basically be
there
an
for a while.
overlay on the graphic, so
What's that?
boom. It would just be an overlay on the
Yeah, it's a
homepage
white
graphic.
box over on this left-hand side.
So election is approaching and you want information about absentee voting. Could be an appropriate
Right.
image with the box.
The other thing we can do is we can swap out these buttons on the bottom. So if it's tax time and we want people to know where to go online and view of the content.
What does somebody subscribe to?
Subscribe to a variety of things. I clicked the button. So meetings, agendas and minutes, alerts and notifications, which would be like that latest news, or if there was a water main break or something that we wanted to get out. That might be similar. That's probably the latest. Monthly newsletter would be the utility billing newsletter, job postings. Those are the things we have in there right now.
Under Explore Two Rivers, we know what Explore Two Rivers means, but is there a caption we can put that says something about local events? So that somebody that's maybe visiting knows, hey, Explore Two Rivers is where I find those events and what's going on over the weekend. I mean, I know it looks really nice the way it is. I'm just trying to find if I was a visitor and I want to know what was going on and I found the city website.
Yeah, so we've got it there because that's the way it typically appears, but then up here, if you go to residents and visitors, there's an explore, which will get you there, but then this visitors and things to do will also get you there.
Hoping, of course, could be a first-time website visitor, but we're hoping that becomes fairly intuitive, that, you know, this is the only exciting looking icon they have. It must be trying to draw me into it. By the way, and this was from the Room Tax Commission. We're also working on a mock-up right now of a bar coaster, a coaster, wherever you are, that has the QR code for Explore Two Rivers.
One other feature I just want to touch on that will be really nice is the search. We'll search now within our own website versus going to Google like it does right now. We're also working on switching our code over to the company that did the web, also the company that does our meeting. So when you do a search, it will search meeting agendas, minutes, packet information, website, and
Now will it simply be linked to our existing online code?
right now it's linked to the
Which
existing
right
online.
now is provided by a different vendor?
Correct.
Yeah.
you know, one thing to Jason, or to Adam's point, if it said Explore Two Rivers event info, because otherwise if you go up to the top and how to do it and all that, that's a lot of fooling around to try and just get to what's pertinent for that weekend or what have you.
There could be some corresponding text in white, like under agendas, forums, et cetera. If
That's
would
kind of
be
what
helpful.
I was thinking, yeah,
Yeah.
something just real simple and basic, not to make your job any more difficult, but. And I don't know if it's possible either, under like when you do the subscribe, is there a way to subscribe to events under Explore Two Rivers? So when new events
Good
go
question.
live under Explore Two Rivers, that could be pushed out? There may be some people that do like events or like coming to Two Rivers, and maybe if they get that notification, they may come more often.
Explore Two Rivers is a completely different website, which is also in the process of being revamped. When that website is live, there is a potential that would be an option, but not through this website.
Okay,
Not without us manually going out there and having to push an alert out every time.
we don't want to
And
do
it would
that.
not be us that would be populating Explore Two Rivers, so we wouldn't know. But
Ken
on Explore,
Ivy, who really got Explore
might be
Two
an option.
Rivers up and going, just passed away, and we're transitioning it over to this.
Is there a way we can try
Right,
and
yeah.
talk to them when they do that to see if that's a
we can,
possibility?
yeah, we're not as close as this.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, you're
Elizabeth's
making
got
notes. Okay, thanks. Okay. And that's not a knock on the job done here, because this looks very, very nice. Obviously, it's just a little bit of input that might help for tourists and people that we want to see more often, I guess. And
Every
that
added
might
set
be a
of
good
eyes
way
helps.
to see them a couple more times, possibly.
And where is the link over to Main Street?
Under business, Two Rivers, Main Street. Flip you right to,
Okay,
Done
and it
that kind
goes
of
over
quick.
to
Can you
theirs.
show
Okay.
that again in the drop down?
downtown.
It's a lot more simplified, I will say that. I mean, the old website's got a bunch of different bars on top, and this is kind
Yeah.
of simplified into groups. Find your group, find where you gotta go, and it'll take you there. So, yeah.
We intentionally picked a homepage. You will notice you go to the homepage and you have to click a button to go somewhere. There is no scroll. You cannot scroll down. And that was intentional. Our page is very,
And the graphic is prominent and it gives a real good chance. You have, as always, you got to select the right images with the right proportions, but really a nice chance to show off the community visually, because we're all USA Today kind of visually focused people.
And that,
And then
that's
is
a-
this optimized then for mobile responsive sites so that it comes up in a way that's user or mobile device friendly?
yeah, it works really well on the phone too.
It does look pretty similar. Do they have to reconfigure it to fit more on a mobile
No,
screen?
you can pull it up in your phone. I can't show you it very easily, right? But yeah, the menus and everything work pretty well.
Again, that's going live.
We plan on Wednesday morning. Rick did tell me once we get it all set up, it could take 2 hours on one person's computer. It could take 4 hours on another person's, just with whatever background data is there. I don't,
Those can either go to the site obsessively or we'll get an announcement out on Facebook and an email to council that it's out there. So.
Great choice in a picture. That really shows off our lake. On the weekend, just hearing from some people that have never been here before, compared our beach to an ocean. And they were quite serious about it. So that's a great picture to show off our community and say, hey, this is the gem you're missing if you've never been here.
Again,
I know right where it came from.
Jamie, Lisa, Elizabeth, and other staff have put a huge amount of work into this, looked at a lot of other communities' websites, and we got a nice product. So thank you.
Job
Good
well
job.
done.
Yeah, it looks really good on mobile too.
elections, and then we'll move on.
Any other discussion on this or feedback? All right, we're going right over to C, discussion of how to incorporate feedback on city issues from Facebook and other social media in the city council's decision-making process. We'll see what staff has to come up with that.
That was my best attempt, at least, to incorporate what Jeff had raised at the last council meeting, recognizing that we're in a social media age. In fact, Facebook is even a bit dated now. They tell me the Instagrammers and the people that do everything else. And certainly for my part, I'd say individual council members can certainly make use of social media, and there are various community sites, and gauge to the extent you value that public input compared to other forums as individual council members. That might be part of your platforms for getting elected, or, once you're on, encourage that kind of input. I'm at a bit of a loss as how to formally incorporate it as far as the city, like in a public hearing context. Say, I do think we could do a better job, and will, with the new website, of likewise when new agendas get posted for the coming week, putting that information out there, encouraging people to use means, again, I'll go back to such as email, to direct them to the clerk or council on issues in order for those to be delivered to the council formally through city staff as here's information. We do have a city Facebook page, of course, and maybe there's a place there specifically where it's directed. I'm just not sure how we would institutionalize if the intent is to reach out to community websites, whether it's, just Two Rivers News, just Two Rivers information. You're from Two Rivers. If Two Rivers News and Information, those are three I know of right offhand. And how we utilize those as far as that Facebook feedback that's out there, for sure. I'm at a little bit of a loss. So we serve this up for council discussion.
I would say let's defer this to give the first crack at it to both Jeff and Scott, as they were kind of the ones that really want to see this happen. And I'm not opposed to it. I just want to hear what they have to say and see what they're thinking before the rest of us maybe chime in.
Most of the time, I mean, I'll use that input that I get on there, but if I click on somebody's profile because they made a comment and they're not from Two Rivers, they don't specify that they are from Two Rivers, then I just disregard it. But if it says that they are from Two Rivers, you can be 90% sure that they are, you know, and then I'll take that comment into account and I kind of keep track of it.
Are you looking to share this like when we ask for council communications? Or how are you looking to bring this forth? Is that the intent, or is it the intent to have it as part of a public hearing? I mean, of course, when you vote, you can take into consideration anything you really want at the end of the day.
I think for what we're kind of thinking, and what I'm kind of thinking, is not public forums or input or anything. I think it's more of public input, where we ask people to come up to the podium, call in or email or whatever, where they just want to say something. They just want to say, you know, whatever's on their mind. They want something to be looked at or something. That's kind of how I was looking at it. Just another way for people to, they can't come in. Yeah, I know they can email, but just some way that they can just communicate an idea they have that they want to get to the city.
So are you looking to have this up like on our screens as it is, as the city Two Rivers logo is now, and have it live, or are you gonna bring that
No,
forward?
it was just some way for them to communicate to us. And then when you ask us, are there any
And then you're gonna
communications or
bring it
anything?
forward.
We can say, like Jeff, I know it does, and sometimes I do too, is
Yep.
so-and-so contacted me about this, and we saw this and this and this, just something like that. Nothing complicated where we have it on the screen and, you know, we have to sit here and watch it and see, oh, so-and-so made a comment. I don't think we want to go that far.
Okay.
You know, everybody says, well, they can just, well, email you or they can private message you. It doesn't work that way, you know? They would just rather make their comment and walk away.
Why doesn't that work that way?
What's that?
Why doesn't that work that way?
Human nature is, people don't do that.
Right.
You might
They're
prefer
on
that
Facebook, they
Facebook.
see something, they comment, and they're not gonna take the time to do something else, but you know what? They commented, so it obviously mattered, or they wouldn't have commented. And we keep dismissing those comments.
What I'm afraid of is we're going to get some comments that are vitriolic and will be based on misinformation. And I think if they email us or call us or
That is
come
the
to the
problem that
meeting,
people are
then
always
they
saying.
can, I think, there's a sense of decorum when you do it in these other ways. I think if it's done through like Facebook or something like that, it's a totally different mindset. And I encourage everybody to comment on city government, and here's an idea that I have, or can you do this differently? But maybe in the delivery, it just might not be appropriate to how we're structured. There's just too much leeway for somebody to really get upset about something and say some things that are, like I said, based on misinformation and put us in a really, really bad light. So, you know, if there's a way where through Facebook they can send us a message, I don't know. I got to hear more about it, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. It is hard because you don't, well, one, you might not necessarily exactly know if there's from Two Rivers. Yeah, we can look, but someone could create a bogus page with a bad address or something. But yeah, we'd also have to be careful because, as we know, Facebook can get pretty nasty pretty quick. So yeah, that's something we'd have to take in consideration.
Also the nature of the beast and the times,
Right.
you know? Unless you just have to take it with a grain of salt because.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, there's some things you just.
And the misinformation usually does get taken care of quite quickly. Greg, I know lots of times you would posted something, or Adam, you would post something clarifying things I would clarify. everybody clarifies in the moment, so.
I guess, I'll go ahead, I'm sorry. Didn't
Oh,
interrupt.
I guess my couple concerns are one, bullying is very popular on Facebook. And I think what happens sometimes when there is an issue in front of the council and somebody may comment on that, then all of a sudden there becomes a comment string on that person's comment. And it's not about the issue. Now it becomes about this person's opinion. And we digress away from the central issue. And somebody might get attacked in the process of trying to stand up for something they believe in. So that's why I guess I would rather have those comments come directly to us council people or come here directly in person to address the council so that we can protect people's right to speak up and not have it be, an attack on somebody's personal views. I also think, there are times when we face, again, that bullying there, and then, the sarcasm of Facebook. And there are some people that really don't understand that, and maybe somebody isn't trying to be mean or pointed, but there's a certain anonymousness of being able to do this from your computer at home rather than taking it in a public venue to do that. So, when I get somebody contacting me at home, there's nobody else chiming in on that. When somebody comes to council, then yes, the council members have a chance to comment to them. And then the next person that may come up and speak can refer to something they said. But I think there are protections in place to keep somebody from being bullied or from somebody getting their comments taking us off track.
And one thing too, when I said misinformation, I'm talking about somebody going on Facebook and just automatically believing the first thing that they read that is not correct and, running with that. That's what I'm afraid of. So.
And to make sure that they can't share that, because if someone shares something on Facebook, you don't see it unless they tag you in it. I found that out when I was running for, all of a sudden, did you see all this? And I'm going, what is this? I'm warning you. See 120 stream or
Tracy?
Are we talking about having one Facebook page that people can comment in? Because it sounded like you were referring to 3 different ones, none of which I've ever heard of. I mean, I'm aware of the City Hall one because that's the only one I really look at, but I'm expecting to see things.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, in the heat of discussion, sometimes when you're on Facebook and there's a certain topic that's up there, sometimes it's easy to comment versus trying to go find somebody's email address and then try to remember what the heck you're even thinking at the time. Because I know I've been down that road before. You're scrolling through Facebook, you got a kid in one hand, all of a sudden you're thinking something, you quick type it, and then all of a sudden you got to change a diaper. Then all of a sudden that email just kind of it kind of takes you out of it. It's not, I don't think from what I'm hearing, it's something that we have to scroll through every message and bring everything up. I think if a council member sees it or is directed something in a thread on Facebook that they just want to kind of come here and bring it under public input, I guess, when they've been contacted by a citizen. Almost like when we say, hey, do you have any calls or emails from citizens that you'd like to share? I think from my understanding, that's what they're trying to say is that's when they want to share something, even if it may have been on Facebook.
Well, but on the City Hall one, right?
I think it could probably come from anywhere because you could be tagged probably from any site, really. And it's not something you have to do either. It's not like it's going to be mandatory. I mean, I'm sure people get emails that they may not necessarily come up and say, hey, I got emailed by 20 people and share every little last detail. Could kind of be the same thing. You may not necessarily share it, and maybe you will.
A perfect example is the last 2 hot ticket items that have been up, the gardens and ATVs and UTVs. A lot of comments on that. I don't care if we don't even need to have our own separate page for any of that stuff, but we as a body need to be able to look at that stuff and use that information for the way we decide how we're going to vote on things, because those people, they matter. Every one of those people matter. And I had people say, you know what, well, I'm working second shift, I'm working third shift, I can't get to the meetings. And then their day goes on and then they don't do anything with emailing, and everybody is on, most everybody is on Facebook. So if the comments are there and you know that they're from Two Rivers, if it's showing that they are from Two Rivers, we need to take those comments into consideration and not just blow them off, you know, because that happens a lot.
And to Jason's point, I think we would want to be careful as to what we read and make sure we don't read it word for word, because there could be certain sentences or words that we're not going to want to represent as a council, or pointing out names or stuff like that. I think we'd have to have some kind of
Right, I mean-
etiquette when it comes to it.
There's lots of times there's a whole long thread with a bunch of nonsense in it, but the first part of the thread is either yes or no. Those are the only ones that we need to look at. The other ones don't even matter. Just the yeses and the nos.
I think, Greg.
I think we as individual council people can take in those forums and read that information for ourselves and use that to form our opinions of public input or of public favor or unfavor of something. But I don't know that that's a forum that needs to be formal to this council. I think it can be, you know, a way of formal communication from your constituents to you, but I don't know that it should be necessarily something that is from all constituents to this body as a whole. It certainly, I don't think, should be taken in the same level as an email or the same level as somebody speaking here at public comment. Yes, it could certainly be considered by us as individuals, but I don't think it should be something that's taken as.
It's the new generation. I mean, we have to listen to that. That's how people communicate now. They don't come here.
You know, people
We
used to
see
write on
that.
bathroom stall walls, but I'm not
Back in the
writing
day,
that
that's
stuff
how you
down
found out
and
what
bringing
the
that
number
here
was.
for the input.
See, this, to me, this is part of the problem too, right? I mean, there's some people on council more quiet. Doesn't mean that they don't have good opinions. And I just can't, you know, I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that people are being ignored. And I'm sorry for anybody that out in the public that feels like I just said a wrong statement, but I get emails from people. So I don't really understand why it's so hard. Don't people text? My phone number will receive texts. I thought, or don't young people do that anymore either? What is it that they do? I mean, I really don't, I don't know.
Greg.
If I could just make one suggestion, and maybe this is too old school, I don't know. But we got to be careful if council members as individuals engage out on different community platforms. I do sometimes as well. Got to be a little careful if a bunch of you load onto a thread on a specific topic. I think our city attorney might say we're getting into an online discussion. That doesn't rule out that option. It just means you got to be careful. Because if all of a sudden 5 of you are opining or engaging in an evolving dialogue that happens on Facebook, that could be problematic. Because we don't give public notice of that. We can't. But seriously, and I understand, but if we've got, like on the new website, there's a contact us button. If we could do a much better job of outreach through social media. Again, if we were doing this for a while, then we stopped. If when every agenda came out, there was a notice, you know, here's the link to next week's public meetings. And reminder, if you want to share any comments on these, you're welcome to come do it in person or use the messaging function. The people that have the community message boards could do us a favor. They could share that, you know, Neil could share it on Two Rivers News and Information. And I'm sorry, but if it's too much work, if you're on a topic and you've got the ability to click and be doing an email, maybe your input isn't worth as much. Shoot me for saying that, I'm sorry. But we require people that come to a meeting, maybe it's old school too, to state their name and address for the record. They don't come with a bag over their head and say, I'm Mr. X and trust me, I live in Two Rivers. Are we now having a lower point of entry because somebody doesn't have the time? And you can email if you work second or third shift. We can direct people there from various other forms of social media. If they've got a problem, I can understand a privacy concern, not wanting to share your email address with the world. That could be redacted when the opinion is submitted. But how you institutionalize feedback from Facebook, I'm open to hearing about it. But
Well, we don't really vet people when they call us. I know I don't. And I don't vet them on the email either. I think they're simply wanting to include things they read from their constituents on Facebook, on specific threads that they want to include as part of them being contacted. So when I ask for communications from council members, they simply want to be able to include stuff that they've talked about with others through Facebook, through a certain thread. And again, we don't, when we come here and I call on whomever for communications, we don't necessarily say, hey, was that person vetted?
Right. And there are
And-
people that prefer to deal with you guys individually as council members versus doing a formal communication that you're committing to share with the entire body.
Right.
I guess that's what I'm trying to understand. If we're looking for a commitment that every council member will see the comments offered by this particular citizen, is there a way you do that through Facebook and other social media, or is it simply as 9 council members, you can choose? Jeff's very good about sharing when he hears from people, not just on the street, not just at a local event or business, but something he saw on Facebook. That's cool. Do you want to institutionalize that? I don't know.
I think all he's looking for is to be able to say that it's okay to do that. Not that it's necessarily wrong. I mean, it's his right to do it anyway, but sometimes it kind of gets washed through the weeds, so to speak, because it was seen on Facebook
And it's
versus
not
taken
just that, like,
seriously.
Don't need everybody else or other people on council saying, well, those are Facebook comments. You can't use them. Yes, you can. You have to use them to make decisions because those are people that aren't physically talking to you, but they're still making the comments. It'd be no different than if you were out, say, at the car show and somebody was talking to you. Okay, what's the difference if they come up to you and talk to you, or if they made a comment on Facebook, or if you're talking with a group of people at Carp Fest, and all of a sudden, the whole group is talking, a comment was made. You're still communicating with the public. Anything said on Facebook is basically communicating with the public as long as they're from Two Rivers. You know what I mean?
I got to go to Darla and then Tim. Go ahead, Darla.
I'm just
Then you're
wondering,
next.
like on the city Facebook page, if we had something that was on there just that says public input, for example, and they click on that and pardon me?
Yeah, just a tab, and then that will go to like how they used to have your they'd leave their comment, but the person who controlled the website would look at them to make sure someone wasn't putting, or was just something set up.
Was
Yeah,
that
they-
something that we could, in a certain thread, if there's something going on, maybe someone's concerned about the gardens and someone's talking on Facebook, is that something that we could allow them to tag Two Rivers City Hall Facebook page so that it's put on there so that we can all read it? Is that what we're kind
What
of
I was-
asking?
What I was thinking is that, like right now, people can show up and say, hey, I've got a comment that's during the public input period. Or they can, what I'm thinking is that if we have something that's very simple for them to click on, and it would take them someplace where they can make their comment, and then we will collect all of these comments for the next, city council meeting. It's just the same as like receiving a letter or an email. Then it's just an easier way through Facebook for them to leave a comment. We take care of it at the next city council meeting like we do all these other comments. But it's just an easier path, perhaps.
Yeah, like a tab to a message board just for that public input, and then they would click on it. Message. See it.
Jeff, then Scott, Jeff.
That's all fine and dandy, but the biggest comment I hear talking to people and reading in threads is, why go out of our way? They have their mind made up anyway. That's the perception that we give people out there, that we already have our mind made up. That is the perception that is out in the community. You've seen some of them comments.
I've defended it.
And do you as council members, when you know of examples that refute those comments, respond to it, or you just say, yeah, you're right? It's all cut and dry.
If I usually,
responsibility there too.
if I see it, I refute it.
Yeah,
And
I've
I
seen that.
usually correct if there's something that I feel is incorrect. And I do refute the fact that we do not have, I don't have my mind. I can speak for myself. And a lot of times I'll try and say that. Speaking for myself, I don't. But that is a perception that sometimes is out there. I got to go to Scott here, and then I'll go to Bonnie.
So I was just looking at the new website. Nice job, by the way, Jamie. Nice job. And everyone else. There is so there's the contact us section. They have a submit a request and staff directory. Could we put another one on there, just an idea, contact your local city councilman or something? And it puts it, you put in your first name, last name, email, question and comment. They submit it, it goes to whoever, and then either we all get a copy of it or something. I'm trying to think of something else that we could put into this. This would also help people that don't have Facebook. They have the internet, they have email, that might be another quick way to do it. I don't know. Throw that out there too.
I don't know how, I don't check our city website under council members all that often, I guess. Do you just go there and do you click on that email and it pulls it up for you? Or is it something that you have to copy paste and go back to your, I'm not sure how, I honestly don't know.
Right now, I think IT directs them internally with staff where they think appropriate. But, and I'm not an IT guy for sure, but it seems Scott's idea has some merit, email your city council. I don't think we want people picking and choosing. We don't have aldermanic districts. You're all elected at large.
Right, I think it should just
But
go to.
if it's to city
all of
council
us.
and it just, boom, relays it to all of you.
They want to do just one individual person, they can go in through government and
Find
city
it.
council, whatever, and find your individual one. But I mean, that'd be another way to get it to.
So it is a link on this one. At least you can click on it, looks like.
Could there be a contact all button they click on that would compose an email to everyone's address? Sorry, I'm asking these questions and I don't know
Yeah,
if there's an answer or not.
these. Get a compliment, there's a contact us here. We can
It's
build
from the
web
homepage.
forms and we can send it to as many email addresses as we need to. So as far as picking a drop down of the person that they want to contact, I'm not sure. But I know I could send one to everybody.
Go to the homepage. Contact. There it has submit a request and staff directory. So like the submit request,
Right.
that's what I'm kind of thinking of. Similar to that.
Maybe it'd be a button that said, contact all council members, and you'd come up with that same form and it automatically shoot it out to all. I think that's what you're saying, correct?
Yeah, that's
The
true.
heck out of a link.
And then we would have to do a better job of promoting that, obviously. Like you do, like Adam does for the Pledge of Allegiance. Before every time someone's here to do it, you always go through the spot where you're saying if you want to nominate your children or whatever. I think we could do a better job of, hey, if you want to counsel government.
I think Scott and Jeff are really trying to find a way to make it easy for people to contact us so that they don't feel that we have our minds made up prior to coming into council chambers, that not everybody emails, not everybody calls. And I know it's easy to do, speaking from me, but some people just find it easy just to submit those. And I think they're just trying to get it clarified that when they do see something on Facebook, that we're not just saying, that's just Facebook ramble, forget about it. Let's not even talk about it. And I think they just want some of those more important topics when they're out there and on there just to be at least brought up for everyone to hear. I don't think we're going to read the 120 comment thread. I think it's going to be just something that's kind of a consensus of what they may hear throughout that thread.
That 120 comment thread is our own responsibility to read. You know what I mean?
I don't know if it's our responsibility to read
I
because
feel it's my responsibility.
right. I mean, if you're tagged in it, I mean, I'm not going to all these Facebook pages and reading everything that involves the city, so I don't feel it's my duty to. But if I see it, it's my duty to report on it. I would put it that way. If I see it, I should say something.
And if we get an email reply, think. They get.
Yeah, and that's what I do now. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Facebook won't necessarily get a response from me, but an email to me does.
Tracy,
There is the Facebook icon on the right here. What happens when you hit that?
It'll take you to the.
City Hall? Are people allowed to make comments on whatever they want on the Facebook page? I've never really, I don't know, I've got you on here.
They generally
Look.
can comment on city-initiated posts. I don't think there's the
Oh,
ability
that
to
they can
share
make New
anything
ones?
to the City Hall Facebook page, and I don't think you want to go there.
Well, that's kind of where I was suggesting if we had,
Always look
public input, whatever you want to
Well,
call it, but to have
yeah.
that particular button that they can go to and they can leave their comment there. It would just be really easy going to Facebook and clicking at a particular spot and then making your comment.
Or could route it to the city webpage and have that spot where the council. I mean, because
Yeah, well-
ultimately you want one, to make it real simple for people, you want one place to go, but different ways to get there. You don't want to
True.
have this form and this form and this form, in my opinion. So you could have that button note on the City Hall Facebook page. You can click it, it takes you to our website. It's just a thought.
I like
I
that,
like
because you're
your
right.
idea of like making like the website much better too, make it easier.
Yeah, with the way it's going to be looking, I think this would be a perfect time.
People get frustrated easy nowadays. You gotta make it super simple. We're in a right here, right now kind of a world. Okay, does anyone else have any other discussion on this, or do we want to take this?
Adam, did you want to ask to suspend rules for allow for input from public?
Sure, we can suspend those rules. And does anyone have any objection if we let Catherine Dalkey speak?
What, you are?
Okay, go ahead. You don't have to do anything but speak.
On the Facebook.
I apologize. I was listening online as I was unpacking and cleaning, and I was so moved to get in my car, and Chief thankfully didn't stop me for maybe a little bit, to come on down here to put in some public input, because this is the conversation. It is about public input. And as a resident, as a taxpayer, as a voter, I've been frustrated, and I live with a council member, that my voice isn't always heard. Because I know it's heard by Mr. Dalkey, I know it's heard occasionally by other people, but it's not necessarily, or it hasn't been in my experience, in the years that I've been a resident here, in the years that I've gone out of my way to come to council meetings, dial into council meetings and make comment, that my comments are either heard, acknowledged, or acted on. And I'm not going to stand here and cite chapter or verse of when that has and has not happened, but it's been enough to move me to come down. As elected officials, I trust that you're going to be listening to the community and out in the community. So when I'm out in the community, I seek people out. I seek to have conversation about topics of the day. I work in an industry where I'm reliant on people coming to me, as a recruiter for a global Fortune 500 company. People are not going to go past 2 clicks to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop, to get their message out. They're not going to draft emails. This is an age in 2022. I mean, look at what's happening with Twitter. Come on. This is how people engage. There's going to be bad comments, you ignore them. It's life. There's going to be bad comments if you're sitting out there talking in a bar. All we're trying to say as citizens is give us a chance to get our voice, our message to you. So if there are several forums out there that we all hang out on, Two Rivers News and Comment, you are from Two Rivers if. That's where we read about the business of the day and things that are happening. We look at the pretty pictures and we comment and we have conversation. And for those of you who are tuned into that, you get a pulse of what the city is thinking and feeling. It's that pulse that we're looking for you to react to and respond to and to take into consideration. If I have to hear one more time from an elected official that our comments don't matter, we are too lazy to come down here to be part of the process, that's insulting. That is highly insulting to the people who put you in these chairs. I appreciate that the dialogue is moving forward to finding solutions to drive people to a forum where you can read the comments. But know this, you're going to build a website unless you drive traffic to that site, it's just going to be that. If it's not a well-known site, go to the sites that have the followers, post your information there, create a simple link to it, a hyperlink that can bring it to Two Rivers so it can serve the information to you guys. If you're not going to get out there in the public and hear it, at least give us a way to get that information to you. That's all I ask. I'm being hopefully very respectful. Again, I apologize for my decorum. I'm literally in my pajamas here. I was that motivated to get in the car, brought my license, to come down here and speak to you guys. But this is the passion that the public is trying to get out to you. Please don't dismiss us. Please stop making these comments. It's just Facebook. It doesn't matter. Most of your voting constituency are on Facebook and not Instagram. The demographics, 50 and above. pretty much the demographics of the city. That's all I ask. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine. We appreciate you coming down. Okay, so is there any other discussion among council as a way to move forward with this? I think we've heard from pretty much everyone. Again, I don't think that we should necessarily dismiss them. I have no problem if Jeff or Tracy or Jason or Darla or whoever comes here and says, hey, I want to bring this to your attention during my communications. This is something I got on Facebook. I think that's an okay thing to do as council members. Digest it. You may not agree with it. You may not like it, but that's the same with emails. Sometimes you may not agree with them. Sometimes you may not like them, but we should all know about them. And then where we take it from there is our job as council members. Are we doing anything formal? Pretty much not.
Council wanted to provide some direction for a policy-related action at the next regular meeting or a future regular meeting, open to that. I don't know if that I've heard a clear consensus. I've heard a lot of interest in at least encouraging individual council members to consider that input. I mean, you could, and that's up to you, and people might vote you out for it. I mean, in theory, if you say, I never listen to the person behind me in line at Pick and Save, I only listen to the person in front of me, that'd be kind of stupid, but I think that's your call. Some of you may not choose to participate on Facebook. I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here, but there's a lot of misinformation out there. And just because, let's say on the 2 or 3 top community sites in town, a council member or the city manager or some other staff person isn't refuting every bit of disinformation, doesn't tacitly mean that it's true. And there is that dynamic to threads where, you know, the first one may have been on target and the next 6 are disparaging comments about the poster. That I don't know how you incorporate that. But if ultimately you land, I'm sorry, Adam, but if ultimately through the city's Facebook page or some help from the administrators of those community pages, you go right to the place where your text, and it doesn't take any longer to type the words in that constitute the body of an email than it does to type a Facebook thread. I assume, you know, use the same methodology. The only difference is you're directing it to the city. It is a public record. It's out there. You can't suddenly delete it, and unless somebody did a print screen, it's gone. There's something to be said for that. Otherwise, too, quit asking people to give their name and address when they come to the podium, because there are a lot of people out there that represent, they're expressing an opinion. They were doing it in the last election, and there were people that, and they were speaking very authoritatively about Two Rivers and did not reside in the corporate limits of this community. That's the God's honest truth. But I'm not saying you shouldn't take into account these newer methods of communication, but some element of responsibility comes with that as well for the person expressing their opinion.
I think when it comes to misinformation, I think as council members, I think if we don't know if it's true or false, we should be going to the source. And I try to do that as much as I can. So if I have a question, I will email Greg or Brian or whomever it pertains to say, hey, did you hear about this, or what is this? In fact, I did it with this last agenda meeting. There was something on there that I text Greg that night. I didn't know. I asked. And I think we should be doing that same thing. So if it's something you see even out on Facebook and you don't know or understand, ask. You know, because we don't want to be pushing out misinformation, and that helps us respond on Facebook or through email or even on a phone call if something's true or false. And I mean, that's why Greg and the staff are here. They're here every day dealing with this. We're not. I think we should be smart enough to do that if it's on Facebook, email, or a phone call in the first place, or we should be doing that right now. So if anyone wants to offer up a motion, we'll take it. Otherwise, we're going to move on. So do I have a motion to direct staff to do anything in particular under 4C?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm good. Yep. But
There's, on the webpage, I hit the Facebook and it does take you. I had no idea.
all right to the
So
city.
so you can post something on Facebook to Hall's Facebook.
Did you post or did you message?
I don't know. No, it is a
Yeah,
message.
you sent a message in the
never
City
mind,
Hall
it's a
Facebook
message.
administrator.
I
Apply
thought
your
everybody
message.
could see this. That's why I asked who was reading this.
Yeah.
Oh, and because I got this back and it said,
Well,
"Hi, thanks
there,
for
there was a
contacting me."
place where you could post, but I don't know that they actually put those live if somebody were to try and post.
Why-
Okay,
why couldn't we?
let's corral this in real quick. So if anyone wants to make a motion as to how to direct
Yeah,
any
it is
Facebook
information.
chatter, as far as including it in under comments, when I ask for comments from council members, if they've been contacted, do you want to make a motion to include that in for Facebook? Does anybody want to do that? Otherwise, we're moving on.
Adam,
Yes, Darla.
all right, if we could make a motion to direct staff to, explore the possibility of having an easy avenue on the city's Facebook page where they can click it and they can go and leave their comment. And Scott, to your, I like the idea of making it easier on the city's homepage too, and maybe kind of link those in and all the comments go to one particular place, but then they would be addressed at the next city council meeting, just like we would any other, if we got a phone call, we talk about it at the next meeting. Or if there's a text or an email, we talk about it at the next meeting. I think this should be treated the same.
So we're bringing some Facebook into this. I have a motion that Jamie, did you get that? Okay, do I have a second on Darla's?
Second.
Thank you, Scott. Any further discussion on this particular motion?
I would just like to, what are you talking about? That the comments are put there and then one person retrieves them? I mean, I don't quite understand what you mean.
I think is what she's trying to get at is you'd go to it would be a spot that would direct you to the city's Facebook site where you could leave that comment and it would get distributed to all of us. Is that correct?
I think that would be the
City's
best way.
Facebook.
City, or the city's website.
Or the city's website.
Yeah, either or, it would all go to one place that we as a body of 9 would have access, and Greg and whoever else we want to have on there, we would have the access to it so we can see what people are making comments about or if they've got a question, and we'll be prepared for the next meeting.
And we're not, just to clarify, Bonnie, we're not voting on this to enact it. We're voting on staff to create. So they may have this idea, they may take it a little step further, or maybe not, or maybe exact. They may see other things that may float. They're gonna bring it back to us for us to discuss and kind of look at and see if we like, if we want to add, adjust, or whatever, and then we'll vote to have it enacted. So we're just directing staff here.
It may and it hopefully will involve some good research. I'm just sitting here thinking we got a new website launching Wednesday. If council, I'm not dragging my feet here, but if we could look at, say, by the meeting of the 15th, I'd like to know, can we post to Facebook, say, a link or something to the agenda for the upcoming council meeting and have a field where you click to comment to council on this specific agenda item? Somebody, and that's not the totality because you got people that have got issues they want brought to the council that aren't on your agenda a lot of the time.
I don't think anyone has objection to you waiting to the 15th,
Yeah,
2 weeks
'cause
later, just to try and, because you may be able to incorporate it into something that's even
We'd
better
like
than
to,
what we're
make
dreaming.
an honest effort at bringing some alternatives back to you.
I think that would be good and that would be fair and that would be do justice to the process here.
I'd rather delay it a little bit and get it right.
Yep.
than Rush through it and not have everything we need.
With the mover and the shaker, you good on that?
Yeah,
Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll put Jamie to work. How about a roll call?
Jason Ring,
Aye.
Bonnie Chimilunas. Scott Steckmesser,
Aye.
Adam Huskey,
Aye.
Jeff Delkey,
Aye.
Tracy Coach,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you guys. Good discussion. Thank you everyone for your input. That's what it's about. On to action items under 5. Under A, we have an application for a temporary Class B license from SCL Softball Club for SCL Softball Tournament, July 8th through the 10th, 2022 at 1200 35th Street, Two Rivers. The recommended action is a motion to approve the application and authorize the city clerk to issue the licenses. Anything on that, Greg? Should be pretty
Nope.
simple.
Just understand we're lucky that lined up with the work session. We get to these two as quickly as we can. And occasionally, especially for new council members, under our ordinance, this isn't the formal title, but there is a beer emergency that can happen. And the city manager, if there's not time to get it to council, can approve a license on an emergency basis. But this one came in and Jamie got it to you timely to make it work. So thank you for that. No beer emergency in this case.
All right, we're looking for a motion to approve this. Thank you, Scott. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Do we have any council discussion? See none. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Perfect. On to B, resolution declaring intent to reimburse expenditures from proceeds of borrowing for the 2023 water main, sewer, and lateral replacement projects. Recommended action is a motion to waive reading and adopt that resolution. Greg?
This is not, I'll preface it by saying this item is not committing the city to any specific projects or specific spending or debt issues. However, we are pursuing funding through both the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program and the Clean Water Fund for the water and sewer mains and laterals replacement associated with potential 2023 projects involving reconstruction of Lincoln Street on the east side from 17th to 22nd, Roosevelt Avenue from 6th Street to 12th Street, and some, again, scattered lateral replacements, both water and sanitary. Water drives the replacement, but we video people's storm laterals, sanitary laterals at the same time, and usually advise if you got a bad sewer lateral, you'd best be replacing it while you've got a contractor on site and the street is dug up. So those are pricey projects. There's a summary listed on page 7 of your packet. You see the Lincoln Street project all told about just a little over $2.2 million. Roosevelt, a little over $3.25 million, $726,000 in scattered laterals. So potential projects totaling $6.2 million. We may end up doing one, we may end up doing none, or both. All this resolution does is assure that any outlays made by the city in the pursuit of these projects qualify for being reimbursed through the proceeds of borrowing. Now, under state law, generally you're okay on engineering and design expenses, but on outlays for actual construction activity or purchase of goods and materials, I'm sorry, I don't remember. It's either a 60 or 90-day maximum period that could have passed since the expenditure and still have you able to borrow, unless you've done a resolution declaring official intent to reimburse from proceeds of borrowing. And the environmental loan programs of the state, both Clean Water and Safe Drinking Water, are very good about making darn sure these get adopted up front so there aren't any whoopses out there. We as a staff are pretty good about that on your regular city borrowing too, I'd hasten to add. So we'd ask for your approval in order that any preliminary expenses incurred toward doing these projects would be eligible for reimbursement through the borrowings.
It's a project we need to get done, that's for sure. So looking for a motion on
Make
this.
that motion.
Thank you, Jeff. Do I have a second? Bill? Any council discussion? Seeing none, this is a resolution which requires a roll call. Jamie?
Jeff Dalkey.
Aye.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Darla Leclerc.
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Jason Ring.
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulinis.
Aye.
Scott Steckmesser.
Aye.
Adam Weskey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you for that. On to C, staff report on equipment investment required to resume live broadcasts on city council meeting on Spectrum Cable. Recommended action is a motion to not proceed with the investment required to resume such broadcasts, recognizing that meetings can be viewed live and after the fact on City Hall Facebook page and on YouTube. Greg?
Yeah, this, as you know, for a couple of months now at least, we have not been going out on Spectrum Cable. And a lot of people in the community really like watching the meetings on Spectrum Cable. People that aren't tech savvy at all, maybe even don't have a personal electronic device. People like my wife who likes to have the meeting on TV in the background while she's doing something on her iPad otherwise. So there, I got that input at home. But we did find that it was a matter of some new equipment that would be necessary to, again, link our signal out to Spectrum and Spectrum HD channels. I didn't ask for detailed backup on this, but the numbers that Rick Powell in our IT department got are as shown as the email here from Dan McQuain with Charter. And he notes that terms and options to upgrade our public educational and governmental, or PEG channel, to HD and to go out over spectrum again are either to incur a one-time charge of $28,000 or simple monthly terms with $5,435 down and $795 a month for 36 months. The city after 36 months would have no further obligation unless we wanted to continue broadcasting over spectrum, in which case it would be an ongoing $795 a month. Honestly, we have heard from a number of other cities and our own school district that as equipment is worn out or become obsolete, they've ceased telecasting over the cable system. Now, I don't know the numbers, but I think just as you talked earlier about changing technology, there are fewer and fewer of us that are tied by that cable umbilical cord to spectrum. So as a staff, we'd be hard pressed to recommend this level of expenditure simply to get it back out there on spectrum. If the council feels strongly, though, that this is something we should continue to offer, and I know there are folks in the community that want it. There was a lady in our office just today saying, when are you going to get the meetings back on TV? My husband and I are not going to huddle around our digital devices, and we like to watch it together. And I shared those numbers, and she kind of came to the same conclusion. But again, you're the policymakers on that, and you hear from the community.
I have two questions as it relates to it. Do we know the numbers from when we were on Charter as to how many people actually tuned in?
I'm not aware that we have those numbers, Dave. Yeah. Okay.
Second, can it be viewed on Charter's streaming? So if you stream with Charter, no. That's the only way it can be streamed as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Right. You got to be on Charter to stream Charter, to do Charter streaming.
Okay. I wasn't sure just because it's on YouTube and we don't have anything with YouTube, so I didn't know if there was, the streaming world maybe had something different.
And again, it's a technological thing, and that maybe a lot of people that prefer to watch on TV wouldn't do. But if they've got a laptop or a tablet, they could, with the right devices or a TV of the right generation, be casting what goes out onto their TV or a monitor for viewing. Maybe we could help give people some advice for that. I know we have some IT types on council, but that's an option too. You want to be watching it on a 40 or 50-inch screen, you can. Maybe you've got a smart TV that already does it, or maybe you get a cast unit. But I think for a lot of the constituents that value the cable cast, they aren't going to view that as an option.
Jeff?
No, it says here the one-time charge of $28,000 and 0 monthly recurring charges. Does that mean that you're never going to have a monthly charge?
I think until the equipment.
Even if it lasts 15 years, there'll never be another recurring charge.
Well, I think I didn't ask that specific question. I'm going to assume unless and until the equipment wears out or becomes obsolete again. So I don't think that's a forever. One thing I shared it with the lady that was in our office this morning. In the old days, I can speak to that, before our state legislature and governor in their wisdom chose to have uniform statewide franchise requirements and stripped away from local communities the ability to negotiate individual franchises with Spectrum and other providers. We typically had 10-year franchise agreements with the cable company, and I guess call it a tradition. Often the kicker for finalizing that negotiation and getting approval of the new franchise agreement by city council was to say, how about you provide a capital grant of $25,000 or $30,000 to assist the city in upgrading its equipment? That's not an option anymore because, again, the state has dictated what the terms are. And I'm not totally critical of that. You can imagine being a cable provider and having to deal with each and every municipality around the state. But that, in the past, had funded equipment upgrades.
Bill?
You read here, it says it's both options were for 36 months. $800.
Right. Right. That's if you use the recurring charge, I believe. If we spend the 28,000, we have the equipment, but there's no guarantee beyond that.
Jason?
So is it, if this is equipment that we're purchasing, is it something that the equipment cost can be then spread out over the lifetime use? You know, we get to, you know.
I think the city,
that.
if you're suggesting maybe could either with some internal borrowing or external, could spread this capital cost over an estimated.
Yeah, because I
useful
mean, I'm
life.
looking at this and saying, okay, if the current technology, we invest $28,000 in this technology, what is the lifespan of it? Like, what was our previous? So, I mean, I don't know. I don't suppose they're going to guarantee us a lifespan that this technology will still be in use with Spectrum. But if we can get 15 years out of this, like we did the last equipment, the cost per year on that $28,000 investment is less than we're going to pay to put meeting notices in the HTR. And I think this is much more valuable to have these streamed to, or on the cable network to the maybe it's not.
Using that as your
expensive,
basis for comparison, I'm
Yes.
not going to disagree with you.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's really archaic and required by state law.
So,
Yeah, so either which way, we can't get rid of the HTR, though, I don't
I
think.
know.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, it's still
Okay,
just- it still
sorry.
burns me.
Yes. Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
No.
Okay.
It's
Haven't seen fit to.
yeah, as compared to cost benefit analysis.
Yes.
I feel like, you know, if we can, you know, use this system for 15 years, I kind of like that investment there. But if it's something that, and then I guess my second part of this, man, this might have been a great thing to be able to apply ARPA dollars to a couple of years ago when we had to give up having people meeting in person for our meetings and doing public input that way. But
Yeah.
now that we're out of the pandemic, you know, it's not as relevant, you know, as an excuse to maybe find funds elsewhere to have this paid for. But there aren't ARPA dollars or other dollars that we can have applied to this, that we could do a grant for, or again, pull out of those dollars?
Our ARPA dollars that we have are specific to infrastructure and broadband, if we choose to spend it on broadband.
But nothing like this
Yeah.
that could be applied.
If I could, Jamie, I know you'd observed, having worked in Kiwanee and Algoma, well, do you know in each of those municipalities what they're doing presently?
Kiwanee is doing YouTube. That's equipment died when I was there, so that was probably like 7 years ago, and never replaced it because it was expensive. Algoma is doing YouTube and live cable. Their cable is also on the last leg. When ours died, I reached out to them to see if we had a backup there or if they had any ideas, and they have nothing, so they're kind of on the last leg too.
Our school district some time ago stopped doing it.
What about our school, Rivers High School? I thought they had one too.
They did, but my understanding is they are no longer using it and haven't been for some time. Because when I heard they weren't telecasting on cable, I asked Rick, we'll contact them, see if they've got something that's salvageable that we could make use of. And that was not the case. And I don't know how long it's been, but I gather it's been some time. They've not been using cable as a means of sharing their meetings.
I mean, if they have the equipment and they're not using it, maybe we can get it from them.
Yeah, that was what we pursued. And we reached out to other municipalities as well through the clerks network, and if not other means. Again, it's not a showstopper. It's $28,000, as Jason points out, spread over multiple years. But we're kind of layering things because we're also investing more in the technology to use other platforms to get information out.
Carla?
That's a lot of money, and I'm thinking that, and we can't really quantify how many people are watching it on cable. But I'm thinking if they are, there's got to be some way for them there's got to be some way for us to find out how many people actually would watch it. And I'm wondering because what are they doing right now? You know, if we can get the word out that, hey, if you want to continue to be a cable, you know, be able to watch us on cable, let us know. If we get a great response, then we might be able to justify spending some money. If we don't really get any responses, is that $28,000 really worth it?
I don't know if you want to load up on these community polling issues, but maybe just an idea, after the current round of utility billings has run its course with the ATV, UTV information, just a simple little notification in there. Do you think it's worthwhile for the city to make this investment, given these are the other options?
Okay.
We reach out to
Here's the
spec-
email address to use to reach out to city council on this matter, or the
Well,
city
did
clerk.
we also put on there, did you know this is how you can view the city council meetings?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
What kind of equipment?
Yeah, or we haven't been on TV for 3 months. Have you missed us? So I don't know. What are you hearing on that one?
You would think Spectrum should know somewhat. I mean, they have TV ratings for everything else. They know how many people turned into the Grammys, how many watch 10 o'clock news
we
or
can ask.
whatever.
I don't know if there's Nielsen ratings for local government or not, but, or the equivalent. We'll ask that question, get it answered for you.
I mean, I just feel somewhat sympathetic for that, I don't want to call them older generation, but that generation that's probably not coming out at 7 o'clock at night, that has no clue how to even turn on a computer, but wants to stay involved. I also am sympathetic to $28,000 and justifying that to the rest of the tax base for what could be a small majority or a small minority in that case.
5 stations.
And that's what I'm trying to figure out, right? Because I don't know.
That's another question we used to know when we had local franchises what their market penetration was. And I don't think it ever got much above 50% before it started declining. Whether that's proprietary or we can get that, we could ask the question.
So we're on YouTube now?
Well, is it YouTube TV or are we YouTube TV? Or just YouTube? Okay.
Are we put on YouTube, Spotify, that most people, that comes standard on every device you get now?
We're on YouTube.
Saying.
They're on YouTube now.
Almost thinking that if you have a smartphone, that you should be able to take your USB and plug it in the back of the TV and plug it into your phone and charging. I think that you can get it. I'll have to play with that when I get home, but.
You do that through Wi-Fi too.
Smart TVs, yeah, you can
Yeah.
watch it right on there.
You can cast it from your phone.
We have a smart TV.
Yeah.
Isn't that what you're talking about though? Get a little bit of education? Here's how you can.
In some instances, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I went out and bought a cast unit before I realized, heck, my smart TV already has that capability. So back to Best Buy it went.
We can find out how many costs they have.
We can ask. That's the one I'm not sure of, whether they have an obligation to provide that or not. Yeah, yeah. That's true. That's true.
What you got, we want to advertise.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll get the same 4 or 5 people, probably once a month or once every other month since this has been going on, that say, hey, when are you gonna get that up and running again? But then it is the same people all the time, so I really don't know what the market penetration is neither. It
Yeah,
could be
a lot of
could be a
people, you'd have a lot of complaints.
You would think. We don't want to disregard those 4 or 5, but we gotta govern the whole city, not just the 4 and 5. So we can either offer up a motion here, which I would suggest offer some kind of a motion. Somebody?
I would like to make a motion that we look into this just a little bit more and find out if we can find market penetration, how much there had been, you know, and see if we can get a little bit more detail rather than just throwing it away.
So we're gonna table this with that in mind, is that correct? Okay, do I have a second on that? Thank you, Bill. Off to a vote, because we do not discuss tables. All right, roll call vote, Jamie.
Tracy Coach,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Tim Petrie,
Aye.
Jason Ring,
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulinis,
Aye.
Scott Steckmesser,
Aye.
Adam Husky,
Aye.
Jeff Delkey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'll let the last one, if we can shoot to get your report back by the meeting on the, whatever the second meeting is, the 18th. Yeah, because we got a holiday weekend staring us in the face and an agenda that's already developing. But yeah, likewise, how
18th
many
or work
views are
session
we
is
seeing
fine.
on YouTube? How many views are we seeing on Facebook? How are those numbers trending since we stopped televising? And
Work
then
session.
I like Tim's idea. Okay, let's pretend we're buying advertising. Tell us about viewership. Maybe we ought to offer advertising on city council meetings.
All right, on to D, recommendation from staff and finance committee regarding sewer back billing to owners of multiple unit buildings who have been underbilled for sewer fixed charges over the past 2 years. The recommended action is a motion to approve the billing arrangement as recommended by the utilities committee. I think Dave has dropped off this sheet for your viewing before we started our meeting, but we'll let Greg give an
I'll
intro. to
serve
this.
it up, and Dave is available to speak to this as well, as is Mr. McDonald, who oversees the sewer utility. As staff was looking at the revenue projections from different possible sewer rate adjustments, we recognized that we've had a problem since implementation of the last sewer rate change, which I believe was April of 2020, about 26 months ago. And if you think, I'm sorry, January 1st. Okay, so we're about 30 months past that change. If you remember when we presented the rate ordinance to council, if you have a single family home, every one of you pays currently a $15 monthly fixed charge for your sewer service. And the proposal was to take that up $2 to $17 per month. If you own a multi-unit building, the rate structure right now is that you pay $15 a month for that first unit and $9 a month for each additional unit. And that's supposed to be indeed for each additional unit. It appears when the January 2020 increase was implemented, the system got set up so it was charging for those first 3 additional units. So if you had either a single family up to a 4-plex, you were paying what you're supposed to. The system has not been billing for any count higher than 1 base charge plus 3 additional unit charge, or 15 plus 3 times 9, quick, Greg, $42. So you could have a 50-unit building and you are only paying $42. Now, this list from the finance department is certainly the bulk of those properties that were underbilled. Now, you may look at it and say, not every apartment building, I know there's apartment buildings in town of more than 4 units that aren't on here, but bear in mind, some of the newer apartments, I think of the ones at Washington Highlands, for example, several 8-unit buildings up there, they all have individual water meters for each apartment. And so each apartment unit is paying the $15 charge, and there is no additional unit charge. But in aggregate, with the discussion from staff, as recommended to the Utilities Committee, and as now recommended by the Utilities Committee after their meeting last week, is to basically look at these accounts, go back 2 years, which is the net back bill shown in yellow, highlighted in yellow. Obviously send a letter of explanation to those people that have been underbilled for a significant period of time. Go back 24 months, because that is the max that the city can go back under our regulated utilities. If this was a water or sewer billing error, we'd be expected to go back, but no more than 24. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yeah, water or electric are regulated utilities. This one isn't regulated, so the PSC doesn't dictate, but this would be an approach consistent with what we do in the regulated utilities. The further recommendation, if you looked at the minutes, was that these property owners be given the option of paying it in a lump sum or in 12 monthly installments with no interest applicable to those installments. If they indicated a hardship and wished to go for a longer period, to offer up to 24 months at 5% interest. So you can go longer, but there is some cost associated with going longer. Obviously, we don't like to have to go back to people and say, we made a mistake and you owe some money. On the other hand, as Dave can explain and explained at Utilities Committee, these bills, in the case of each of these properties, went down in January of 2020 when the error occurred. Nobody called and said, gee, my bill went down a pretty good amount. And actually, it went down by a whole lot more than what the rate increase amounted to at that time. So that is what's recommended in aggregate. It is $75,000. You think about it in terms of the rate increase that's proposed, and we'll be coming back before the council next week. 1 year's worth of this is about $37,000 and change. That's about 1.4% of total revenues for the utility. So the committee at this point is not recommending an adjustment to the rate increase that was recommended, but full disclosure, this is about 1.4 to 1.5% of total revenues. We're never proud of a mistake like this, but in the context of the entire system, it's not something that jumped off the revenue reports at you either, because it's less than 1.5% of gross revenues. There is one in the process of reviewing these accounts. There was one account for the community room at Edgewater Terrace Apartments where it was identified, help me out, Dave, they were getting charged as if they had 4 units, and it's just one. So there was one of these that cut the other way and a refund is due. They'll probably want that in a lump sum. So that's what staff presented, and that recommendation has the concurrence of the Utilities Committee, and chair of that committee can speak to that as well.
I'll tell you what, if I had been one of those people who all of a sudden my bill went down, I would have just been happy. I wouldn't have said anything,
Darla, you were one of those people.
Oh, yeah, I was. We're on here. Never mind.
Happy.
And we don't want to have to give people bad news, but I think that the mistake should be rectified, because you figure this income is going to better the lives of over 11,000 people. So it's not just, these people, we got to just keep an eye on them. I hate to do it to them, but that income is going to be used across the board for the entire city. So you can kind of justify it like that, but the mistake's been rectified and we'll just go on from there.
You do note in the notes, there are 3 properties that have had new owners during the past 2 years. That means they came in, the city, our customer service staff did represent, here's where the account stands, and they thought everything was trued up when they bought their building. So while we might send a courtesy bill to the prior owner, the thought is we're not going to collect on those. And that's unfortunate where those buildings have sold, but those are highlighted there. And the other thing about the June 22 charge, we had started implementing some adjustments maybe a little early before we decided to, this really needs to go to the committee and the council. Understand, if we find a mistake on one individual account, staff makes the call on that and people get back bills. The magnitude of this, the relative magnitude of this, and the timing, just as we're getting ready to also talk at council about a rate increase, this obviously deserved full sunshine, and that's why it got discussed at the committee. It's being discussed here tonight. And
Jeff, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. I was running out of words anyway.
Okay, Jeff.
Can we legally collect this? I mean, go to them and say, hey, you owe this because we made a mistake. We made a mistake, and I don't know. Back.
They're not very well regulated sewer rates. People can appeal to the PSC, Public Service Commission, if they're unreasonable. Yes, I don't know of anything that prevents us from billing them if there was of error, provided the bills are legitimate and they are for services actually rendered.
Certainly have the documentation of if you will, of the error and what happened.
Be happy to look at that documentation and check it out to see if there is any problem, but there's none I can think of off the top of my head.
And if the council was inclined to authorize this, subject to review by the city attorney, with the idea we as staff, we would report back if there were concerns. But if there weren't.
This whole thing is kind of a catch-22. I mean, hate to leave $75,000 laying on the table, but man, we screwed up. It's,
The large one, you can't tell me you didn't know, that they didn't notice their bill went down $475 a month. That's, it ain't like
Right.
$6, $7, you go, oh, extra $500 that went down, and doesn't happen.
It's a tough one. It truly is. Of course, it's an equity issue for every other ratepayer that's sitting there saying, wait a minute, I paid.
I mean, I think we gotta go out and collect it. I mean, for everybody that's not on this list, we had to pay a sewer rate the whole time. I mean, what's good for one is good for all. I mean, they're all putting into the sewer system. We made the air. We're not charging them interest for the first year. I think if people have hardships, there are some pretty high numbers here that we should maybe offer no interest a little bit longer, maybe another 6 months, but that's just my opinion. Because at the end of the day, it still falls down on us as an heir, although it wasn't intentional, obviously. We're human, we all make mistakes. But for some of these, I mean, $900 a month. Oof. Right.
Again, I don't disagree with Adam at all. That's a 50, I forget, that's a 50 or 60 unit building. So there's a pretty nice income stream there. But if the council wishes to offer a longer interest only payment, that's entirely your prerogative.
I think they should have to come and ask for it, though. I don't think we should just necessarily give it. I think we should ask for them to pay it in a year. And if they have hardships and want to come and address those with Dave or whoever we want to direct those to.
Dave.
Okay, so if they want to discuss those financial hardships with Dave and want to get an extension on another 6 months, my opinion, we just help them out, because at the end of the day, it was our screw up.
my fear is that they're.
Well, they should. The customer should have been paying it the whole time.
Yeah, actually, I recognize one of the names on here, and I know for a fact that they own several properties across several states. So not noticing that a specific bill went down would not be necessarily unusual. So asking them to pay up because there was an error, they really have a problem with it. They'll appeal it. So I suggest that we do this.
And we had talked about that too, that, 12 months with no interest charged. And, but if they wanted to go the 2 years, it would be the 5%. Because we kind of want to encourage them to take care of the problem, get it off their plate. And another thing too, and we do this with like sidewalk repairs. If you can't afford the entire, if you have to have an extension, we work with those people on a case-by-case basis. So it's not like we're inflexible, but we'll work with people. But, I think that, like Greg was saying, like these higher amounts, they have a higher income stream. So it might not be as bad of a problem for them as it looks to us.
Hopefully they can
So-
just pay it off. I guess the
Yeah.
only difference for me was sidewalk versus an error on somebody else. That was the only sticky part.
Right. Well, my point is that we'll work with the people, because maybe somebody doesn't have that. I mean, and I use sidewalks just as an example.
Did you have something?
I'd be happy to check on it to see if there's any difficulty enforcing those bills and let you know.
We can include that in the motion, and we don't necessarily need a report back. If we don't hear back, we would understand that it's going forward. If someone's so inclined to make a motion to include that, because we do not have one on the table to my knowledge, do we? Thank you, Jeff. Do I have support?
I'll second.
Second, are you in favor, when you support that, of if somebody has absolute hardships and want to talk to Dave about an extra 6 months for helping them? Not to knock what you guys did. I'm just sympathetic to some of those
Oh, no.
high numbers.
And we talked about that. We understand that.
I thought that was
We
part
just
of our
wanted-
report.
Please pay it first, not that everybody
Right.
went, oh.
Right. They should have to defend their case. Okay, so that's included in the motion. Is there any discussion on this motion as it stands? See none. Roll call vote.
Bill Leclerc. Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Tim Petrie,
Aye.
Jason Ring,
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulunis,
Aye.
Scott Steckmesser,
Aye.
Adam Husky.
Aye.
Jeff Delkey.
Aye.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you, guys. Good discussion. There is no for information only. Is there anything you want to add before we go to close, Greg?
No, it's just that there is the potential, we don't have any members of the public, but sometimes they show up. There is the potential for city council to take action upon reconvening an open session, as is noted as a possibility on the agenda. So.
Okay, under 6, close executive session. The city council reserves the right to enter into closed session per Wisconsin statute 19.851G when conferring with legal counsel for a governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved in. Tonight, we will discuss matters pertaining to the city and the Room Tax Commission response to recent court filing by City of Manitowoc and the Manitowoc Room Tax Commission. There is a possibility for us to come out of closed session with some action, but that remains obviously to be seen. Do I have a motion to go into closed session? Thank you, Scott. Do I have a second? Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? This is a roll call vote. Jamie?
Bonnie Shimulunis,
Aye.
Scott Steckmesser,
Aye.
Adam Husky,
Aye.
Jeff Delkey.
Aye.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Tim Petrie, Jason Ring.
Aye.
So this concludes the streaming of the meeting. We will post tomorrow on Facebook any action taken by council.
Before you stop the streaming, I just want to let everyone know at home and here that I am going to depart now and not participate in any closed session meeting as my current employer as the other side of this legal action. So.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Ring. Duly noted for the record.
Thank you.
And cut it off, yes. Thank you.
Oh, it's Jack, it's for you.
You, sorry.
Oh, really?